up, sub crew? Welcome back to my channel. If you're new to the crew, my name is Natasha B, and this channel is all about beauty, business, travel, and inspiration. Now, with that being said, let's get right into the video. So today's video is all about regional versus mainline. So I get this question a lot. What's the difference? So we're just gonna talk about all of it right now. So let's talk about regional. So as you guys know, I used to be with SkyWest. I get this question a lot as well. I was with SkyWest for 10 months. That's when I got my CJO, and then I started training with Mainline, which is the company that I'm currently with. And actually, as of February, it's officially been 10 months since I've been with Mainline. I can't even believe it. But anyways, so back on topic. Well, first off, let's just start with what's the difference between regional and mainline. Now, regional carriers, they're usually the smaller planes. Usually the max that they hold are usually around like 75, 76 passengers on like the largest regional aircrafts, and then some of the smaller regional planes usually hold about 50 max. So the amount of passengers is one of the difference that you serve. And then two, a lot of the regional carriers, they're either designated to one specific mainline airline. Like I know Envoy. Envoy is a regional carrier, so meaning that they only do the smaller aircrafts. Now, they are a regional carrier, but they only fly American airline routes. So they are a regional company of American Airlines. Now, American Airlines Mainline, of course, now, you know, they're of course the bigger planes. And they're also regional companies that cater to pretty much like all of the carriers, like SkyWest, which is the company that I was with. So they cater to American, Alaska, Delta, and United. So they do all four of the main carriers here in the US. Now, and then also too, you have some of them like Endeavor. They do strictly Delta. So they're like a subsidy of Delta Airlines. So they're a regional carrier on the very small aircrafts, and they only fly like Delta routes. So, and then I know, I believe PSA is also another one that's just mainly American Airlines as well. Correct me down in the comments, but I believe PSA is another one as well. So it just kind of depends on the regional company that you decide to go with as far as some of the locations that you'll fly. A lot of the aircrafts are pretty much set up the same. I know some of the like smaller aircrafts, like the babies of the aircraft, like the CRJ-200 is what we had in SkyWest, which was the smallest aircraft, and it only held 50 people. But I know like when you get on Envoy's really small 50 passenger aircraft, it's set up a little differently. So I mean, honestly, some of the planes are a little different, you know, things like that. But with regional airlines, you also fly to a lot of the smaller cities. So now I'm not going to say that all regional companies fly only to small cities, because you do have sometimes they'll fly into, of course, big major hubs. But out of those big major hubs, usually they fly into some of the smaller cities that the larger aircrafts can't technically get into, or the tarmac for the aircraft isn't structured to fit a large aircraft, it's structured to fit a smaller aircraft. Those are some of the things that regional airlines do. They tend to work for multiple different companies, not all the time, but most of the time I've noticed. And also too, the aircrafts are smaller. And usually the flights are usually shorter. Now, I'm not gonna say all of them were shorter, because you guys know I hated that Chicago to Salt Lake City flight on them little bitty planes. Like a 3.5-hour flight on them little bitty planes, working it is just terrible. But that's neither here nor there. Yeah, so sometimes but usually you fly shorter distances. Sometimes the flight may be 17 minutes. It may be 15 minutes. It may be a 10-minute hop, like, 30 minutes. I mean, not to say that some of the larger aircrafts don't usually do them, but usually those flights, literally the shortest flight I've ever seen as far as like mainline is probably like a 30 or 45-minute flight. But usually it's like to two big areas or something like that, where a lot of people go back and forth between those areas. So they don't mind, of course, carrying all those people to those two different destinations. Now, when it comes to coming from a larger hub into a smaller hub, of course, then they're just going to use the smaller aircrafts to get into those smaller cities, because it's usually not as many people going into some of the smaller cities as well. So they're not as in high demand as the larger airports. Another thing that's a difference on regional carriers is that you usually don't cook food. Now I will say that on like the Delta flights that we would fly, we did have ovens in the back to where we would cook some food, but for the most part on the flights you don't really get any kind of like hot foods or anything like that. The most thing you usually get is like some cookies or like a quick snack or something. So, and sometimes we will have the snack boxes and stuff for sale as well, but for the most part, like sometimes like in first class, usually the meals are like pretty cold. They're not like heated up and warmed up and stuff like that like you would find on when you're on the larger airlines, when you're on the larger planes, because we have ovens in the front and in the back. Yeah, that's another thing that regional does, so you don't really have to worry about like cooking food per se. I think I didn't cook food at all while I was with SkyWest. The girl that was in the back, she did cook food and she kind of like showed me how to do it. But other than that, y'all, I never had to cook any kind of food whatsoever. Whenever I served first class, it was literally cold all the time. Like it was just what it was. We had like little ways where we would try and like warm up our food whenever we ate. But as far as like the first class passengers, it was just, you just served it cold. So yeah, so those are some of the things that regional carriers, regional companies, that's kind of like what they do. And you usually are paid way less than you are with Mainline. Now, it honestly varies as far as the pay, but you can always look into a bunch of the flight attendant Facebook groups, and you can always just inquire about the pay. And also too, they have flight attendant groups per company that you're trying to get into. Yeah, just like they have flight attendant groups for mainline companies, they also have some of them for the regional companies as well. So just kind of like type it in and see if you can find, whatever. So that's how you can find out about the pay, because like I said, I don't know the exact pay, and then too, contracts always change. So I don't know if something has changed. Last time I was with SkyWest, the starting pay was $18.13. I'm not quite sure if that has changed or not. If it has changed, please leave it down in the comments. And if you work for any other regional company, and if you don't mind sharing that information to help out others on the platform, please also leave a comment down below saying what the starting rate is. I'm not saying you have to say what you make, but just, if you don't mind just saying, hey, my company starts at X amount for the first year. And usually training also is shorter with regional carriers. So with SkyWest, my training was 31 days. And for the most part, from what I hear, training is usually anywhere from 3 weeks to a month for a lot of the regional carriers as well. Mainline is usually a lot longer. Sometimes usually like a month and a half on average to 2 whole months. It just kind of like depends on the airline. So yeah, so that is regional. Now let's hop over to what mainline is. Now mainline are the huge aircrafts. Usually they hold 100+ people on the planes. These planes, sometimes they fly shorter distances, but for the most part, they usually fly the longer distances. And they usually fly to a lot of major hubs, because it's a lot of people trying to get to and from major hubs, of course. Like major hubs are like huge connecting points for people. And also too, mainline, they travel overseas. Now regional carriers, for the most part, they don't really travel overseas. The most they may go is like Canada. We had a trip into the Bahamas, but it was like a turn. It was like no longer like, it wasn't like an overnight anymore, but we overnighted a lot in Canada. Mexico is also a spot. You guys seen the vlog where I went to Mexico when I was with SkyWest. Had a nice little layover there. Those are some of the places that they go. I know a lot of people with mainline, they'll say like, oh, well, that's not really considered international for mainline, like Canada or Mexico or something like that, because it's still right here in North America. But I mean, listen, to me, international is international. I mean, if I look at my pay stub, it still says I get international pay. So me personally, I still consider it international, but most people don't really consider it international. So, I mean, just take it however you want to take it. But for the most part, regional carriers don't really go overseas. But mainline, now they fly somewhere, any and everywhere. Like, mainline flies to like London, Paris, Frankfurt, like Cape Town, places like that. So they go to some of everywhere. Australia, Hawaii, they go to all of these, Alaska, all these different places. Regional, they don't go any of those places whatsoever. So that's one of the biggest things as far as what mainline is about. It's further distances, it's larger aircrafts, it's more people. Therefore, and also too on the Depending on the distance, depends on what kind of food you offer on the flight. So if it's a shorter distance, of course, it's just mainly gonna be like the cookies and the drink. And then sometimes you have bistro on board, is what we tend to call it, and it's where you get hot food. So I'm not saying like a whole meal per se. I mean, it is kind of like a meal. It's like a little snack type of meal, but it's like heated up, warmed up. You get like burgers and hot dogs and, you know, all this kind of stuff. So you get like cheese plates, hummus, all this kind of stuff you have to choose from. And a lot of it is heated, not all of it, but a lot of it is heated. Even in first class, you have heated meals. Usually on those flights, if it's blocked at 3 hours or longer, it's usually a meal for first class. And then bistro on board, if it's 3 hours, then you also get bistro on board as well, but you do have to pay for that. However, it's still an option versus regional. That's not something that we provide. It'll just be cookies and snacks, and that's it. Another thing with Mainline is that you tend to get, sometimes you get crew meals. So this right here was something that I thought was huge when I got to Mainline, because I was like, oh my God, they feed me? Because with regional, sometimes I wouldn't bring food. I would try and bring food as much as I could because I knew they weren't gonna feed us. But with Mainline, sometimes we do get meals on the plane. And then too, you know, you can always get a meal off of the plane as well, because a hot meal, because we have ovens, versus with regional, not so much. So in the back, of course, they didn't really have any food, and then in the front, usually first class had eaten all the food, so of course you can't take that. But so yeah, so it's not really any food on the plane. But as far as but sometimes there was, but sometimes there wasn't. It was just kind of like your luck of the day. And then, but with Mainline, have a little bit more of like options as far as food. On the plane, you have like the bistro. Sometimes the passengers don't really eat all of it, so that you can, so then therefore you can buy your own. Or first class, you know, sometimes it's extras left over because there's more people in first class. And sometimes they usually offer more first class meals. Every now and then I have seen it where they will have like an extra 1 or 2 or something like that. Or, I mean, it just depends on where you're going, honestly. Sometimes they have extras, and therefore you can kind of have a meal if everybody in first class doesn't eat theirs. Or if everybody does, then it might be an extra meal. You never know. And they offer us crew meals where it's specifically designed for the crew. I thought that was the airplane food isn't the best for you. I will say that. So just be mindful of that. It's not something I would recommend that you do all the time. Especially being a newbie, you're gonna want to do it all the time. You're a little broke or whatever, especially if you're coming from regional, you probably don't have that much money. So, you're probably just trying to like save and save and save. I know that's something that I was doing. Technically, I'm still kind of like doing now, but not so much because I was very, very strict with my money when I started out. Like I said, they offer you food. They offer you crew meals. That's another great thing. Another thing as well, you get paid more. Your top out amount is also more as well. And when I was at SkyWest, the starting pay was $18.13, and I believe at the time that the cap was $45 an hour. I believe that was the cap at the time. If it's changed, leave a comment down below, let us know. When I was there, that's what it was, and I believe it was after, I think 13 years. But with my new company, now that I'm at Mainline, our starting pay is now $28.32, and then if you're on reserve, you get $2 extra a pay, so it's like $30.32. And the top out rate last I checked was like 69 and some change, so pretty much like $70. If I'm not correct, just leave a comment down below, but I believe that that's what it was last time I checked. Either way it go, $45 to like 70 some dollars an hour is like a huge difference. So that's another thing about Mainline that you also might want to consider. And then two, you get to that amount when you reach 13 years within the company. And two, another thing about Mainline that's different is you usually tend to have less legs. So I know with regional, sometimes, y'all, it was days. I don't think I ever had it. I think the most legs I've ever done was like 5 legs. And I think I've only done that, I think like once while I was there. But it was very common to have 4 legs, 3 legs. It was very common, like every single day have that many legs. Now with Mainline, Honestly, I think the most I've seen is 4 legs, and people always try and get rid of that. Nobody ever really wants it, but you don't see like 5 legs or 6 legs. Like that's something that you don't really see with Mainline. That's usually a regional thing, and because like I said, regionals are the smaller. What regional airlines, they have a smaller plane, and usually they fly a shorter distance. So it's almost like they're like little hoppers. They're kind of like hopping from city to city to get people to where they need to get to. And usually there are a lot of turns in between that pairing as well, you know, for the day with regional. But with, like I said, with Mainline, it's usually further distances, and you usually have less legs. So I would say on average, you usually have anywhere from 2 to 3 legs with Mainline. And even 3 legs, people are like, oh my God, I just don't want to, you know, because like I said, you're dealing with more people. So it just takes a lot more effort, and it's just a lot more. Even boarding takes longer, and deplaning takes longer when it comes to Mainline versus regional. Like literally, like people, when we land, people can be off the plane within like 5 to 8 minutes. Like legit, that's just how, because the plane is small, it's easy to hurry up and get people off. And even when people get on, like people can be boarded within a good 10 minutes. Like, you know, you know, those are some of the huge differences, because I know sometimes with with Mainline, you know, we board for like 45 minutes, an hour and 15 minutes. Like for the huge planes when we're going overseas, usually the boarding process is like way longer. But you know, when we're on some of our smaller aircrafts with Mainline, you know, it may take us a good 40 minutes or something like that to board, 30 minutes to board. But we're given that much time because they know, you know, you have a lot of people to board, and it's a lot of effort that you also have to do to make sure everybody is seated, cabins are closed, like all of that kind of stuff. Also too, with Mainline, you never work by yourself. You're always with a group of people. Versus with regional, you're by yourself, or you're either with one other person. Now with Mainline, the least amount of people you'll have is 3 people, and I think the max I've had is like 10 flight attendants or something. I think that's like it was like 10. I think it was like 10 of us on that flight. I think it might have been like a 777 or a 787 or something like that. But it was like a lot of us on that plane. So that's like the difference as well. So you have a lot more people to help you with your workload versus with regional. It's almost like not as much. So even when you do work by yourself with regional, it's actually not that bad. You just kind of get to do everything your way, which can be a good or a bad thing. If you like to work by yourself, then that's perfect for you. But if you kind of like being around people, then you might get depressed. You know, you might just, oh, I don't really like this. You know, it might discourage you because, you know, you like to be around people versus working by yourself. And then also too, it kind of gets people set in their ways as well when you just only work by yourself. So, I mean, honestly, it's to each his own. Everybody is different. Me personally, I work well by myself or with the team. I like being by myself and with the team. So it really didn't matter for me personally, whether I was working by myself or I was with a group of people. And then now with being Mainline, I'm working with a lot of people. So, I mean, honestly, it just kind of helps me make some friends, I guess you could say, because I have made a few friends with that versus with regional. Not really. Yeah, I mean, I honestly, I could probably say one of the girls actually I met in training, and the other girl I happened to actually meet her on a trip, and we actually kept in contact. But other than that, not so much. But with Mainline, you know, I've actually made real deal friends that I go out with, hang out with, like, you know, like actually have a good time with. If you watch the vlogs, then you already see what I'm talking about. And sometimes, so, you know, so I mean, that is a little bit of a difference. But like I said, to each his own. It honestly depends on you, what you like, and how you adapt to your situation. So yeah, so those are some of the differences between regional and Mainline. So yeah, guys, I hope this video answered a lot of you guys' questions. If you have any more questions, definitely leave them down below. Be sure that you like the video. It really helps to promote the video so that other people can also get a little bit more insight of being with regional and Mainline. Definitely be sure that you subscribe, because I have way more videos coming for you guys, and share the video, of course. And yeah, I will see you guys in my next video. Bye.